John Harris was a man of simple habits. Every morning he woke up at exactly 7 a.m., made himself a cup of coffee and sat by his small balcony overlooking the busy city street. The world outside seemed alive and chaotic, but John preferred order. His apartment was neat, his meals predictable, and his life, well, uneventful. He lived alone mostly because he enjoyed his quiet routines. Friends occasionally called and his family checked in on holidays, but for the most part, John found comfort in his solitude. Lately, however, a strange emptiness had crept into his days. He had everything he needed: books, gadgets, a comfortable bed. But something was missing. One evening, John was scrolling through a quirky online marketplace he had discovered by chance. It was full of unusual things: miniature robots, glowing art pieces, and strange gadgets he didn't know existed. Among all the items, a small ad caught his eye. Furry companion for sale. Perfect friend for home. The picture showed a tiny creature with soft, golden fur, big round eyes, and a smile that seemed almost magical. The description claimed the companion could respond to emotions, offer company, and even learn a few tricks. John felt an unexpected warmth. Perhaps this little friend could fill the emptiness he had been feeling. Without thinking too much, John clicked buy now. Within minutes, he received a confirmation. The seller promised delivery in 3 days. He leaned back in his chair, imagining a small, adorable creature bouncing into his apartment, curling up beside him, and keeping him company during long evenings. For the first time in a while, John felt a flicker of excitement. The following days passed slowly. John went about his routine, but every time the doorbell rang, his heart leapt, only to sink again when it was just a neighbor or a delivery for someone else. He began arranging a small corner of his living room with a soft blanket and a few toys he had picked up from a pet store. He wanted everything perfect for the arrival of his new friend. On the morning of the third day, a strange feeling filled John as he prepared breakfast. Something was different. There was a light hum outside his window, faint at first but growing steadily. Curious, he stepped onto his balcony. The city looked the same, cars honking, people rushing. But then he noticed a ripple in the air near his doorstep, like heat waves shimmering in the sunlight. Before he could process it, there was a knock. But it was not a usual knock. It sounded soft, almost musical, like a bell chime. John frowned. He had expected a small box or maybe a tiny courier, not this. Taking a cautious step forward, he opened the door. The sight that greeted him made his heart skip a beat. Standing in front of him was a teenage girl. Not any girl he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered softly, like liquid light reflecting in a calm river. Her hair flowed in colors he could not name, somewhere between violet and silver. Her eyes were enormous and luminous, holding galaxies inside them, and delicate markings ran across her arms and forehead, patterns that looked like tiny constellations. John stumbled backward, holding the doorframe for support. I think there's been a mistake," he stammered. "I ordered, a furry companion, not this." He pointed vaguely at her, unsure how else to describe the surreal sight. The girl tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes curious but calm. "I am aware," she said in perfect English. "I am Lyra. I came because you requested a companion. Your order triggered my arrival." John blinked, trying to understand. "Companion? Like a pet?" Lyra smiled faintly, the kind of smile that was gentle yet carried wisdom far beyond her years. "Yes, but on my world, companions do not always arrive as small animals. Sometimes, they arrive as themselves." John swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, he gestured weakly toward the apartment. You want to come in?" Lyra nodded and stepped through the doorway. As she entered, the apartment seemed to brighten slightly, as if her presence brought a new energy with it. John noticed tiny sparks of light floating around her hands whenever she moved, and a faint hum resonated in the air. I need to understand this," John muttered to himself. He led her to the living room and sat down on the couch, trying to act normal, though his hands trembled slightly. "So, you're my companion?" Lyra tilted her head again, studying him with those strange cosmic eyes. "I am here to be your companion. I will learn from you and you may learn from me." John laughed nervously. "Learn from me? I'm just me. I don't know if there's anything to learn." "You are human," Lyra said simply. "Humans are remarkable. I have observed your species from afar. There is much to understand, much that fascinates us. John felt a mix of pride and disbelief. From afar? Lyra's gaze softened. Yes, from my world. I come from a place very different from yours, where we value knowledge, creativity, and courage. But humans have qualities that cannot always be measured. Ingenuity, humor, resilience, these are rare even among advanced civilizations. That is why I am here, John blinked. Okay. Wow, that's a lot. I just wanted a small pet, not a glowing alien teenager, Lyra laughed. The sound was musical, gentle, like wind chimes. You will learn to accept surprises, John Harris. That is part of your kind's charm. For a long moment, the two of them sat in silence. John tried to make sense of what had happened. He had expected a tiny furry creature, but instead he had a being from another world in his apartment. It was impossible, unbelievable. And yet here she was. Finally, he spoke. I guess we'll figure this out. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Do you eat, sleep, watch TV? Lyra tilted her head thoughtfully. I observe your habits. I learn quickly. I will adapt, John chuckled. Well, I suppose the first lesson is making tea. That's simple. You just boil water, put it in a cup, and add leaves. Easy. Lyra's eyes sparkled. I will try. Over the next hour, John taught her the simplest things. How to make tea, how to sit comfortably on a couch, and even how to hold a book. She watched everything carefully, mimicking his gestures with a mix of precision and charm. At times, her glowing fingers accidentally made the tea swirl magically, or the book's pages fluttered on their own. John laughed nervously but couldn't hide a sense of wonder. By the end of the day, John realized something. This encounter, as strange and unexpected as it was, had brought life into his apartment that he had never experienced before. Lyra wasn't just a visitor, she was a friend, perhaps even more. As the city lights outside began to twinkle, John looked at her and said quietly, almost to himself, Well, Lyra, welcome to my world. Lyra smiled softly. And thank you, John Harris, for welcoming me into yours. For the first time in many years, John felt that his life, ordinary as it had been, was about to change in ways he could never have imagined, and he realized with a mix of fear and excitement that the companion he had bought was far more than he had ever hoped for. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of an adventure that would test his courage, his creativity, and his heart, an adventure that would prove, in ways he could never predict, that humans truly were remarkable. The next morning, John woke up to a strange, gentle hum vibrating through his apartment. At first, he thought it was his alarm or maybe a distant traffic sound. But when he opened his eyes, he saw Lyra hovering a few inches above the floor, her hair shimmering softly like sunlight through water. Good morning, she said, her voice calm and musical. I have observed humans sleep. Fascinating behavior. Your dreams, they change every few minutes. John blinked. Thanks? I think I usually just dream about work or food. Lyra tilted her head, floating closer. Dreams are windows to your mind. I will study them later. But first, breakfast, John sighed, rubbing his temples. Right, breakfast. I guess you eat food, sort of? I will attempt to learn human eating habits, Lyra replied, glancing curiously at his kitchen. She extended a hand and the small blender John had been using for his morning smoothie floated into the air, assembling itself on the counter. John stared, mouth open. Okay, that's impressive. And slightly terrifying. Terrifying? She asked, tilting her head. I am trying to help. Yes, of course, John said quickly. Help. Totally help. He watched as Lyra's delicate hands, or whatever they were, worked the blender with precision. She followed his instructions carefully, and within minutes a smoothie was ready. She took a sip and her eyes widened. Interesting. Sweet, cold, nourishing. Humans consume this regularly? Sometimes, John said, finally smiling. It's a good start. You'll get used to it. As the morning progressed, John realized that having Lyra in his apartment was like living with a very bright, unpredictable storm. She observed everything with sharp attention. How he brushed his teeth, arranged his shoes, even how he scrolled through his phone. At first it felt invasive, but John began to enjoy it. Her fascination with mundane things reminded him that life itself could be magical. After breakfast, he decided it was time for a small introduction to the world outside. Lyra, humans go outside sometimes. It's called walking. We exercise, see nature, talk to neighbors. Lyra's eyes sparkled. I would like to observe this activity. John grabbed her hand, hesitant but guided, and led her down the elevator. When the doors opened onto the bustling city street, Lyra froze for a moment, overwhelmed by the sounds, smells, and movement. Cars honked, people rushed past, street performers played music, and dogs barked excitedly. Your world, it is chaotic, she whispered almost to herself. Yet organized chaos, curious. John laughed. Yeah, we humans are good at making sense of chaos. Sometimes. Lyra followed him as he navigated the streets, stopping occasionally to touch a leaf on a tree or watch a bird take flight. Each small gesture fascinated her. She reached out and tiny sparks of light swirled around the bird, startling it for a moment before it flew away. John laughed. Okay, maybe don't do that in public. People might think, well, anything. She tilted her head. I will try not to alter your environment too much, yet it is difficult to suppress abilities that are natural. John nodded. Fair enough. Let's just start small. They wandered through the city together. Lyra asked questions constantly. Why do humans work? Why do we have so many rules? Why do people laugh at jokes that are sometimes not funny? John tried his best to explain using simple examples. Her curiosity seemed endless. At one point, they passed a park where children played with frisbees and kites. Lyra's eyes widened with excitement. This is a social ritual? Play? Yes, John said. Humans need play too. It keeps life balanced. Before John could stop her, Lyra extended her hands, creating a small orb of glowing energy. The frisbee the children were playing with suddenly floated in midair, spinning like it had a mind of its own. The children screamed in delight and ran after it. John covered his face, hiding a laugh. I said small, he muttered. Lyra giggled, the sound musical. Humans are very expressive with sound. It is charming. After their walk, John returned home with Lyra, feeling a mix of exhaustion and amusement. She sat on the couch, legs crossed, watching him prepare lunch. John Harris, she said suddenly, your species is resourceful. You can improvise, adapt, and solve problems creatively. I have observed this for a short time, yet it is impressive. John paused, surprised. You think humans are special? Special is not the right word. Unique, resilient, capable of unpredictable brilliance. That is why I am here with you. I wish to learn more. John chuckled softly. Well, you picked an ordinary guy, Lyra. Not sure how much brilliance you'll see. You underestimate yourself, she said calmly. Your species thrives in ways that often escape notice. Creativity, humor, empathy, courage. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths. John looked at her, amazed. This glowing, otherworldly girl had come from an unknown planet to study humans, and here she was, praising him. He felt a strange pride, as if he were representing all humanity in her eyes. The rest of the day passed in a blur of learning and discovery. John taught Lyra how to use the coffee machine, how to open doors with keys, and how to navigate simple human technology like smartphones and televisions. She picked up on everything quickly, though often adding her own alien twist. When she touched the remote, the screen lit up with swirling lights instead of the usual images. John laughed, shaking his head. Okay, maybe some things are better left normal. By evening, they had formed a rhythm. John cooked dinner while Lyra set the table, creating soft glows in place of candles. They ate, talked, and even laughed at silly human jokes that Lyra didn't fully understand but tried to mimic anyway. John realized that her presence was changing him, not just making his days more interesting, but also making him think differently about life, curiosity, and wonder. After dinner, they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle. Lyra floated slightly above her chair, gazing at the night sky. Your planet is beautiful, she said. Even though it is small compared to others, the life here, it is vibrant. Humans care for things in ways that surprise me. John smiled softly. It's not perfect. We have our problems, but we try. That is admirable, Lyra said. Most civilizations with technology forget to try. They become efficient but lose curiosity. You do not. John felt a warmth in his chest. It was strange, yet comforting, to hear such words from someone from another world. He realized that Lyra was not just a companion. She was a mirror reflecting humanity in a way he had never seen before. As the night deepened, Lyra floated closer to him. John Harris, thank you for welcoming me. I did not expect to feel Comfort in a foreign place, yet here I do. John chuckled softly. Well, you didn't exactly make a small entrance, but I'm glad you're here. For the first time in years, John felt that life was not just a series of routines. It was unpredictable, strange, and wonderful. And somehow, he knew that with Lyra here, things would only get more interesting, more challenging, and more magical than he could ever imagine. Little did John know, this was just the beginning of their journey. Soon the ordinary world he had known would collide with forces far beyond his imagination, testing human courage, creativity, and the unique spark that made them special. And Lyra would be there learning, growing, and discovering that humans were capable of far more than she or even John had ever expected. John was still adjusting to life with Lyra when the first sign of trouble appeared. It started as a faint vibration under his feet, almost like a low hum, unlike anything he had ever felt. At first he thought it was the subway, but then the hum grew louder, more insistent, and the lights in his apartment flickered. Lyra, who had been hovering near the window, stiffened. Her luminous eyes scanned the sky outside with sudden alertness. John Harris. Something is coming. Something not friendly. John frowned, staring at her. Not friendly? What do you mean? She floated closer to him, her glowing form casting soft light across the room. The signal that brought me here? It has been detected. My people's enemies are aware of my location. They are coming to retrieve me. John's heart began to pound. Enemies? Retrieve you, Lyra? What does that mean? They are dangerous, she said quietly. I do not know if they intend to harm your world, but I cannot take chances. They are highly skilled, with technology that surpasses most civilizations. We must prepare. John swallowed hard, trying to keep his panic in check. He had lived a quiet, ordinary life. Now suddenly he was expected to face alien invaders. His first instinct was to run, hide, or call someone, but something inside him stopped. He looked at Lyra, glowing and calm despite the warning. She trusted him. Somehow he knew he could not let her face this danger alone. Okay, he said finally, his voice trembling but determined. We'll figure this out. Together. Lyra nodded, a small smile forming. Yes, together. Over the next few hours, they worked quickly to prepare. John scavenged his apartment for anything that could serve as a defense. Old electronics, power strips, a few small drones he had tinkered with for fun. Lyra floated above, observing his actions with keen interest. You are clever, John Harris, she said, using limited resources to create tools. This is a human skill. Unpredictable, adaptive. John chuckled nervously. I guess that's one thing we're good at, improvising. Lyra extended her hands and soft energy swirled around them. I will enhance your devices. Your weapons are primitive compared to theirs, but cleverness can compensate for power. By evening, John's apartment looked more like a small command center than a home. Drones perched in corners, ready to fly at a moment's notice. Makeshift alarms lined the windows. Electrical devices were rigged to flash and buzz if anyone approached. All the while, Lyra floated calmly, occasionally demonstrating small defensive maneuvers with her glowing abilities. Outside, the city seemed normal. People were walking, cars honking, unaware that danger loomed above their heads. John peered through the window, trying to calm his racing heart. Do you think they'll come tonight? He asked. Lyra's gaze was sharp. It is likely. Their technology allows for precise detection. Once a target is identified, they act quickly. We must be ready, John nodded. He wished he had done more exercise over the years. His muscles felt weak, his hands sweaty, but he refused to let fear take control. All right, he said firmly. Let's do this. Whatever comes, we handle it. Together. Night fell and the hum outside grew louder. John watched as a fleet of sleek, dark ships appeared in the sky, moving with precision and silent power. Their surfaces shimmered like polished metal, reflecting city lights, and each vessel seemed alive, pulsating with energy. They are here, Lyra whispered. John swallowed hard. Okay, time to see if humans can actually be useful in this kind of situation. Lyra touched his shoulder lightly and a soft glow passed between them. Courage is often what makes humans remarkable, she said. And you? Have it. The first wave of invaders descended toward the city streets. Their landing craft were smooth and silent, gliding down without warning. People screamed and scattered, unaware of what they were truly facing. John's heart pounded as he guided Lyra through the apartment. We need to stay calm. Observe, think. Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes scanning each movement of the intruders. They are cautious, but efficient. Their strategy is to overwhelm. We must be faster and smarter. John grabbed one of the small drones he had modified and tossed it into the hallway. It whirred to life, flashing lights and creating a distraction. One of the alien invaders paused, scanning the corridor. Lyra whispered, "Good thinking." Distraction. Humans are masters of misdirection. They moved quickly through the apartment, using the drones to guide and mislead the invaders. John's heart raced, but he found himself relying on instincts he never knew he had. He ducked, dodged, and improvised traps using old electronics, all while Lyra provided energy bursts to disable or confuse the intruders. For the first time, John truly understood what Lyra had meant about human ingenuity. Their enemies were advanced, powerful, and terrifying, but humans were unpredictable, resourceful, brave. At one point, one of the invaders breached the apartment door. John froze, but Lyra reacted instantly. She raised her hands, creating a wall of light energy that stopped the intruder in its tracks. Sparks flew as the alien tried to force its way through. John grabbed a nearby power strip and swung it at the device controlling the door, short-circuiting the mechanism. "See?" Lyra said softly, smiling. "Humans are clever," John panted, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "Yeah, clever and maybe a little lucky." The battle continued, with John and Lyra moving through the apartment and into the streets. John guided her along alleys and side streets, using his knowledge of the city to create obstacles and traps. Traffic lights were manipulated, cars blocked intersections, and stray items were used to create clever distractions. Lyra moved alongside him, her glowing abilities precise and controlled, complementing his improvisation perfectly. At one point, John looked at her and realized something important. "You know, you're not just learning from me. I'm learning from you too." Lyra tilted her head. "Is that unusual?" John laughed, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Maybe a little, but it works. We make a good team." By midnight, the invaders began to retreat. Their strategy had failed. The combination of human ingenuity and Lyra's alien powers was too unpredictable for them to overcome. They lifted off silently, leaving the city streets eerily quiet once more. John sank to the ground, exhausted but alive. Lyra hovered beside him, her glow softening. "You did well, John Harris. Humans are remarkable indeed. You did not panic. You improvised, adapted, and acted with courage." John laughed weakly. I just did what I thought I had to do, but yeah, I guess humans do have a spark." Lyra's luminous eyes met his, a spark that cannot be measured by technology or strength. "That is why I am here, to witness, to learn, and perhaps to teach as well." The city slowly returned to normal. Sirens wailed in the distance, but the real threat had passed. John and Lyra sat on the curb, looking at the stars above. He realized something profound. Humans might be small, fragile, and often underestimated, but they had something extraordinary inside them. Creativity, courage, and heart. Lyra's hand brushed his lightly. "Thank you, John Harris. For not letting fear control you, you represent what is good about humanity. I have learned more than I expected tonight." John smiled, tired but proud. "Well, don't get used to me being a hero every night, but I'll do my best." She laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes in the night. "That is all I ask. Humans have a habit of surprising even themselves. Tonight, you surprised me." As they returned to his apartment, John realized that life with Lyra was no longer just a curiosity. It was an adventure, dangerous, exciting, and full of lessons. He felt a strange sense of anticipation. If tonight had been this intense, what other surprises awaited them? Lyra floated beside him, calm and composed. "John Harris, the universe is wider than you imagine. There are threats, yes, but also wonders. And with humans like you, there is hope." John nodded, looking out at the city skyline. He had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty and survived. He had learned something vital. Humans were capable of far more than they realized. And with Lyra by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. Other challenges would arrive, bigger and stranger than the first. But John and Lyra had discovered something essential. Together, human creativity and alien abilities could overcome almost anything. And in that realization, John felt something he hadn't in years: hope. The city was quiet now, but John and Lyra knew the danger wasn't over. The invaders had retreated, but they would return stronger and smarter. John's apartment had become their temporary command center. Filled with drones, blinking lights, and makeshift devices, Lyra floated above, her glowing form calm but alert, studying the patterns of the city below. "We need a plan," Lyra said, her voice soft but commanding. "Their next attack will be strategic. We must anticipate their moves." John rubbed his temples. "Right, anticipate. Easier said than done. I mean, we're just one human and one alien." "You are not just one human," Lyra corrected, her eyes shining. "You have adaptability, creativity, courage. These are weapons they cannot predict." John smiled weakly. "Well, I guess that's something." They spent the next few hours mapping the city. John used his knowledge of the streets, alleys, and buildings, pointing out places where the invaders might land and spots where they could set traps. Lyra added her insights, predicting movements with calculations far beyond human ability. Together, they devised a plan to use the city itself as a weapon, turning ordinary objects into clever defenses. When the invaders returned, the sky filled with dark ships once more. This time, John and Lyra were ready. Drones zipped along rooftops, guiding traffic to create blockades. Streetlights flickered, confusing the invaders' sensors. Simple things like trash cans, construction materials, and parked cars became tools of strategy under John's direction. Lyra moved alongside him, her glowing energy precise and controlled. She created small barriers, deflected attacks, and even turned abandoned construction cranes into temporary shields. The invaders were skilled, but they had not counted on human unpredictability. John felt his heart pounding as he watched their plan unfold. "Okay, remember, we improvise if things go wrong," he shouted over the hum of engines and energy blasts. Lyra nodded. "I am ready." The invaders tried to breach their defenses, but John had anticipated every move. He guided Lyra through narrow alleys where drones caused their ships to collide or stall. He used city traffic to create confusion, forcing the invaders to slow down. Every step relied on his understanding of human patterns, something the aliens could not predict. At one point, an invader broke through a street blockade. John froze for a moment, but Lyra reacted instantly. She raised her hands, creating a shield of light that pushed the intruder back. Sparks flew, and the aliens' devices short-circuited. John realized something. Humans might be small and vulnerable, but with courage and quick thinking, they could face even the most advanced enemies. "See?" Lyra said, floating beside him. "You are clever, unpredictable. This is why humans are remarkable." John laughed, despite the tension. "Clever and lucky, maybe. Definitely loud, too." They continued their strategy, moving through the city like a well-coordinated team. Lyra used her alien powers for precision and strength, while John relied on creativity, intuition, and knowledge of human environments. They turned mundane objects into ingenious traps. Water sprinklers caused short circuits in alien machinery. Mirrors reflected laser beams, and even a simple trash bin became a rolling distraction. By midnight, the invaders were disoriented and frustrated. Their technology, advanced as it was, could not match the unpredictable combination of human ingenuity and Lyra's alien abilities. One by one, the ships retreated, lifting off silently and disappearing into the night sky. John collapsed on a rooftop, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra floated beside him, glowing softly. "You did well, John Harris. Humans are capable of extraordinary things when pushed. Courage and creativity, these cannot be measured, only lived." John laughed, shaking his head. "I can't believe it. We actually did it. We beat them." Lyra's eyes shone with admiration. "Not just we. You, John Harris, led with ingenuity. You guided me, taught me about your world. And together, we overcame them. This is proof of your species' brilliance." John felt a warmth in his chest, a pride he had never experienced before. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, someone who simply followed routines and lived quietly. But tonight he had acted, improvised, and survived. He realized that humans, though fragile compared to advanced alien species, had something unique inside them, a spark of creativity and courage that could change the course of events. After the battle, John and Lyra returned to his apartment. The city slowly returned to normal. Sirens wailed in the distance, but the real danger had passed. John sat on the couch, exhausted, while Lyra hovered nearby, her glow gentle. "You did not panic," Lyra said softly. "You adapted, you led. This is rare. Even among advanced civilizations, such adaptability is unusual. John smiled tiredly. Well, I didn't have much choice. You were counting on me. And I am grateful, she replied. Your species, humans, have qualities that even we cannot predict. Courage, ingenuity, empathy. These are strengths that cannot be measured in power alone. John leaned back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, he realized that life was bigger than routines, deadlines, and solitary evenings. Adventure, danger, and wonder could arrive at any moment. And humans, in their own small, unpredictable way, could rise to the challenge. Lyra floated closer, her glowing eyes meeting his. John Harris, you represent what is admirable about your kind. You have proven that humans, though small and fragile, are capable of extraordinary acts when they believe, adapt, and cooperate. John chuckled. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. But don't tell anyone. They might get ideas about me being a hero or something. Lyra laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes in the night. I will not. But remember, courage and cleverness are traits worth cultivating. You have done well tonight. Learn from it. John nodded, finally allowing himself to relax. He had faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and survived. He realized that humans might not have advanced alien technology, but they had something far more important: ingenuity, courage, and a spark of unpredictability that could outmatch almost anything. As the night deepened, John and Lyra sat together on the balcony watching the stars. The city below slowly returned to its usual rhythm, unaware of the battle that had taken place above it. John felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Lyra spoke softly, her eyes reflecting the stars. John Harris, the universe is wider and stranger than you imagine. There will be more challenges, more threats. But humans like you inspire hope. Your species is remarkable. John smiled, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known. Well, I guess I'll have to be ready then. For whatever comes next. Lyra's glow shimmered softly. Yes, together we will face it. Together, human ingenuity and alien abilities can achieve things neither could alone. John looked out at the city skyline, a new understanding settling over him. Humans were not just fragile creatures. They were unpredictable, creative, brave, and capable of extraordinary acts when needed. And with Lyra by his side, he felt ready to meet any challenge. The night ended quietly, but John knew this was only the beginning. Other threats would arrive, bigger and stranger than before. But now he had learned something vital. Humans, though ordinary in many ways, had a spark that could overcome even the most advanced foes. And as he glanced at Lyra glowing softly beside him, he realized that the furry companion he had once ordered had turned into something far greater. A friend, a partner, and a reminder that life, in all its unpredictability, was full of wonder, courage, and possibility. The morning after the battle was calm. The sky over the city was clear again, filled with the golden light of sunrise. The streets looked peaceful, but under that calm surface, something had changed forever. The people didn't yet know what had happened during the night, but the world had been saved, not by armies or governments, but by one ordinary man and an alien who had once arrived at his door by mistake. John Harris stood on his balcony, watching the sun rise. His body ached. His eyes were heavy from lack of sleep, but he felt alive. Lyra floated beside him, glowing softly in the light. Her once bright energy field was now faint. She had used much of her power during the fight. You should rest, John said gently. You look tired, Lyra smiled. My energy will return in time. But what about you? You have done more than any ordinary human should. You fought with heart and mind, not just strength. That is rare, John chuckled. Yeah, well, I didn't exactly have a choice. Besides, it wasn't just me. You helped. She looked at him thoughtfully. We helped each other. That is the true meaning of alliance. John looked down at the city below, the cars, the people walking, unaware of the cosmic danger that had almost destroyed them. You know, Lyra, he said softly, humans usually think they're small in the big universe, but last night proved we can stand tall if we have to. Lyra's glow brightened slightly. That is what makes your kind special. Many species are powerful, but few are brave without reason. Humans fight even when the odds are impossible. That is why the invaders feared you. John smiled at that. Feared us? We barely survived. Exactly, Lyra replied. That is what they fear, that you survive. You adapt. You never give up. You make the impossible possible. Later that day, John and Lyra walked through the city. People were confused about the strange lights in the sky and the brief blackouts, but no one truly knew the reason. To them, it was just another unexplained event. John wanted to tell someone, to shout to the world that aliens existed, that humanity had fought back and won, but Lyra advised against it. "Your world is not ready," she said. Fear and panic would spread before understanding. He nodded, though part of him wanted people to know the truth. "So what happens now?" Lyra paused, looking up at the clouds. "My mission is complete. I was sent to study your world, but now I have learned something far more valuable, your strength of spirit. I must report this to my people. They will listen, and perhaps they will see that humanity is worth protecting." John felt a sudden sting of sadness. "So you're leaving?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with warmth. "I must, but not forever. My people will want to meet you, the human who changed everything." John tried to smile. "Guess I should clean my apartment first, then." Lyra laughed softly, the sound light and musical. "You have a way of finding humor even in farewell. That is another reason why your kind is remarkable." That evening, Lyra prepared to leave. Her body shimmered with faint light as she activated the small beacon device on her wrist. A thin beam of blue light shot into the sky, a signal to her ship. John stood beside her on the rooftop, feeling the cool wind brush against his face. He didn't know what to say. For weeks his life had been filled with chaos, adventure, and wonder, and now it was ending. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first ordered that furry friend thing, I just wanted some company. I never thought I'd end up saving the world." Lyra smiled, her eyes gentle. "Sometimes the universe gives us what we need, not what we ask for." John looked at her and nodded. "Yeah, guess you're right." There was silence between them for a while. The city lights sparkled below and the stars twinkled above as if the universe itself was listening. Finally, Lyra spoke. "John Harris, I will tell my people what I have seen and that humanity is not weak. You are unpredictable, creative, and full of courage. You face fear not because you do not feel it, but because you choose to act anyway. That is true strength," John smiled faintly. "And what will they think of me?" Lyra's expression softened. "They will honor you. You have earned a place in history, not just for your world, but for mine as well." The beam of light widened and a faint shape appeared in the sky. Lyra's ship. It was graceful, shining like liquid silver, almost invisible to human eyes. Lyra turned to John one last time. "Goodbye, John Harris. You showed me what it means to be human." John swallowed hard. "Goodbye, Lyra, and thank you for showing me what it means to be more than human." Lyra's glow brightened, surrounding her completely. For a moment, John couldn't see anything but light, warm, pure, and beautiful. Then she was gone. The beam faded, the ship disappeared, and the night sky was silent once more. John stood there for a long time, staring at the stars. He felt both lonely and proud. He had lost a friend but gained something greater, understanding. He now knew that humans weren't alone in the universe. And more importantly, he knew that being human was something powerful, something worth believing in. Days passed. Life returned to normal. The world went on as if nothing had happened. John went back to work, walked the same streets, drank the same coffee. But inside, everything was different. He spent his nights looking at the stars, wondering if Lyra was out there watching. Sometimes he thought he could see a faint flash of light far above, a silent signal meant only for him. One night, as he sat on his balcony, he heard a soft beep from the small device Lyra had left behind. The blue light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. He picked it up and smiled. "She's okay," he whispered. Good, he felt at peace. Humanity had survived. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something greater, not just for him, but for all of Earth. Months later, strange things began to happen again. Unidentified objects were seen near the moon. Communication signals from deep space carried faint messages no one could decode. Governments grew curious. Scientists began to whisper about first contact, but John already knew. He could feel it. Lyra was keeping her promise. She was preparing the way for something new, an alliance between humans and her people. He smiled to himself as he looked at the stars. Guess the universe isn't done with me yet. He didn't feel afraid anymore. If another challenge came, he'd face it, because he had learned the greatest truth of all. Humanity may not be the strongest, but it never gives up. Humans could learn, adapt, and rise above any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. And that spirit, that relentless spark, was what made them truly powerful. As the night breeze passed, John whispered softly to the sky, "Here's to you, Lyra, until we meet again." A faint flash of light blinked among the stars, almost like an answer. John smiled and leaned back, watching the endless sky with quiet pride. The world would never know what had happened, but he did, and that was enough. He closed his eyes, knowing deep inside that humanity's story had just begun. A story of courage, friendship, and the endless hope that connected every world in the universe.